People, revenge or retaliation comes easily to the human race. I mean, all of us have a natural tendency to want to retaliate when anyone hurts or harms us. As our thoughts focus on getting even or making the person pay for what they've done, that they would get their just deserts. And so, yes, we want to hit back, kick back, strike back, and get back at whoever it was who harmed us or somehow shamed us or who we thought took advantage of us. And this in defense of our rights, our reputation, and our honor. Of course, nobody likes to be insulted personally or imposed upon practically. I mean, who in their right mind would like that, want that? However, and for a disciple of Jesus, such tendencies to revenge, retaliation, and taking vengeance should not be part of one's arsenal or practice in the kingdom, especially where great principles for living are to be found, and where greater righteousness is to be established. A place where unnatural behavior is taught, is sought, and is wrought. And this, by the way, only possible for those with a new heart and a new spirit within them. Like, for instance, those who walk according to the Spirit and who are careful to obey Jesus' teaching. Well, friends, our sermon this morning is entitled Retaliation Repudiated. And for this, we turn to Matthew chapter 5, beginning in verse 38. So please turn there in your Bibles. Matthew chapter 5, verse 38. Anybody need a Bible? Andrew? I need one. That's Andrew. He's my assistant teacher in Sunday school. Are we there? Matthew chapter 5, beginning in verse 38. Well, by the way, our first point being the retribution. The retribution. So verse 38. We've seen the same formula, passage after passage. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. Jesus, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. So like we've done in the past few weeks, let's go right to the source of what was heard. And so for this, let's turn back to Leviticus chapter 24. Leviticus chapter 24. I think this is the clearest passage on this subject. Leviticus chapter 24, beginning in verse 17. So verse 17, whoever takes a human life shall surely be put to death. Whoever takes an animal's life shall make it good, life for life. If anyone injures his neighbor, as he has done it shall be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Whatever injury he has given a person shall be given to him. Whoever kills an animal shall make it good, and whoever kills a person shall be put to death. You shall have the same rule for the sojourner and for the native, for I am the Lord your God. Guys, this Old Testament prescription was given to provide the nation's judicial system with a ready formula of punishment. Pretty simple, right? Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. A law that originally prohibited the formal extortion of overly severe punishment that did not fit the crime. So this prescription fit the crime. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, an animal for an animal. Such retribution instituted then to curb the evil of man because of the hardness of his heart and the violence therein. So when we think of some of these laws, again, we go back to the hardness of men's heart. But like we said, for us Christians, God has given us a new heart. And so things change. And when Jesus teaches, he's not necessarily teaching to those who have hard hearts, but those that are his followers, his disciples, who God has changed their heart. But again, back then, instituted to curb the evil of man because of the hardness of his heart and the violence therein. Given to prohibit vengeance, vendettas, and vigilante-type actions. And so what eye for eye, tooth for tooth did was provide even-handed justice without respect for persons. No matter who you were, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. You couldn't claim to be, some important person. I mean, you could, but it was even-handed justice. And yet, and by Jesus' day, the courts seldom imposed an eye for eye and a tooth for tooth punishment, which means, and mainly because of man's evil heart, such even-handed justice was once more and often reduced back to fostering vengeance and revenge and illegitimate retribution. And of course, payoffs. However, in the present situation of his day, Jesus not only has a better word, but an authoritative word, and one in order to intensify and internalize its kingdom application. For believers, for followers, for his disciples. Thus, Jesus instructs his followers as it relates to retribution punishment, especially in regards to retaliation. Our second point being the reprieve. The reprieve. So back to Matthew, first part of verse 39. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. Let's go back to 38. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. We took it back to the resource. That is what the law said. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. Stop there. So people, as he has done throughout the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus introduces strikingly new teaching. And again, I pray that we are not hard-hearted ones. But God has softened our heart. God has given us his Spirit. And we don't necessarily need laws to tell us what to do. every step of the way. Sure, He's given us His word, but we have His Spirit. And we have Jesus teaching. But again, this is coming into Matthew here. New teaching, authoritative teaching from the Lord. Like new principles that transcend even straightforward tit for tat, eye for eye, tooth for tooth retribution. We don't need to pull out our little pieces of paper that say, if you do this, then this happens. Tit for tat, this for that. It's not how we live today. So new teaching. Moreover, the natural chain of hard-hearted evil and often violent action and reaction when someone hurts or harms you. Again, that's the natural reaction of man. And so this then, in opposition to such retaliation, a reprieve, if you will. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil, which most likely refers to an evil person and or those who wrong you. So then, do not resist. Do not set yourself up against by actively applying pressure or power. Do not oppose by opposing such a person in return. Do not withstand by fighting back and against. No, but according to Jesus, to be the victim of some form of evil does not give us, His followers, the right to hit back, to strike back at them. That's a natural response. Well, he was mean to me, and I'm going to be mean to him. Well, he cut me off. I'm going to cut him off. Don't think I haven't thought that. Tina remembers we were coming out of Camino Island one time, and I was in my 15-passenger van, and I knew I had my V10, and this car was kind of like dogging me a little bit. Then we got onto this 2-lane thing that went up the hill there, if you know the highway there. And I'm like, this guy is not beating me up this hill. So he's in his lane, I'm in my lane. I'm slamming that V10 up the hill as fast. I said, nobody beats this V10. I said, I'll show him. It blew up like a couple weeks later, right? Those things were notorious for the spark plugs, things blowing out of there. Anyway. Do not resist. Do not take revenge. Guys, Jesus is referring to a Christian taking on personal vendettas or retaliation towards another, even one who is evil, with the intention of having one's own back when someone wrongs them or wrongs us. Like, I will take care of this. You ever said that? I'll take care of this. Or, I got this. I will handle this. I'm going to handle it my way. Or, not on my watch, mister. Not on my watch. We're going to race up this hill, and I'm going to take you down in my 15-passenger van. With my kids going, Dad, step on it. And Mom's yelling, slow down, what are you doing? How immature are you? Remember, you're a pastor. Not today, I'm not. Not in the moment. So again, get this, Jesus, even resistance is forbidden So no, do not resist them. Again, this is radical and startling new teaching. This is not eye for eye. Why? Because these are bad people who are intent on getting the better of us, of opposing us, and perhaps even exploiting us. Yet even their badness, having wronged us, does not justify the disciple of Jesus in resisting them. So what a reprieve from what normally would be punishment, retribution, and often sinful retaliation. Getting back at someone. I mean, think about it. They're evil, or they did something evil to me. They wronged me, so now I'm going to wrong them and be evil back to them. Does that really make sense? Somehow we think that makes sense, that, well, we were wronged, and they were bad, so I'll be bad to them. Well, so now 4 illustrations follow and clarify and drive home Jesus' point, which in different ways exemplify the principle of non-resistance. Our third point being the reversal. The reversal. So back to Matthew. Let's start from the top, verse 38. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil, but if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Guys, if a right-handed person, most people are right-handed, right? All of us that are wise are right-handed. I mean, really, the crazy ones are left-handed. You just know that. Are you left-handed? My daughter Reagan's left-handed. I've talked about her twice now, last week and this week. She wasn't here to hear last week's sermon. They always tell her, like, hey, did you know you were in Dad's sermon? What did he say? What did he say? Okay, where was I? So if a right-hand person, get this, strikes someone's right cheek, then presumably it is a slap by the back of the hand. Come up here, Andrew. Let me illustrate this. Come up here for a minute. Really, you're my assistant? No, really, come up here. Stand right here. So think about it. Just to give an illustration. So right-handed, I'm not going to hit him on his right cheek. This is his right cheek. So I would take my and do it like that. Can I do it once? Just for an illustration. I haven't really wanted to do it, but they laugh because I'm always talking about the woodshed in youth group, and they want to know, do you really have a woodshed? I used to have one, but it burned down. The kids burned it down, I think. So, yes, definitely more insulting than a right-handed slap to the left cheek. A backhand. And by the way, a characteristic Jewish form of insult. So actually that was a insult if someone did that to you. And it kind of is an insult today. If someone were to do that with their backhand, a backhand slap, we don't do that today. Nobody does that. But so not only does someone strike you on the cheek, again, that would normally be a sharp and painful blow. I mean, as a child, I remember maybe that happening on occasion, and it's kind of sharp and painful. But adding insult to injury, they do it with the back of their hand. And that, by the way, a gross and serious insult of one's honor. Like, you just backhanded me. You just slapped me with the back of your hand. for which legal relief could be claimed in that environment in that day. Someone actually did that to you. However, Jesus does entertain such thinking, such a course of action. Instead, he says, so not legal action, not resistance. He says, turn to him the other also. And again, that sounds crazy. And first, this is an imperative to turn, a command to turn, and not to burn with anger, but to turn to him the other also. Could you imagine that? You just got a backhand slap in the face, and Jesus is saying, now turn to him the other one. So then instead of seeking recompense under the law, which again could be done in that day, Jesus commands his disciples to gladly endure the insult again on the other cheek. You just got one on the right cheek. Now turn to him the other cheek. And again, we hear this and you say what? What? Well, not another slap to the face. Yep. That's what he's saying. And on the other one as well. Ouch. You just got one on one side and now the other side. One cheek and now the other cheek. So then the proper response to such dishonor is not retaliation or the trading of blows, punch for punch, insult for insult, but a readiness to endure a further blow. Which means revenge, in this case, is not in order. Again, it doesn't say slap them back. You give them a backhand back. So it's not only not in order, and actually is never in order for the disciple of Jesus. Not legally, for that matter, lethally. But even offering the left cheek for a further, if less serious, insult with the open palm. Well, friends, in Jesus' day and in that culture, people took honor and shame far more seriously than we do in ours. Again, that would be shame. That would be such dishonor if someone were to do that with their back of their hand, especially in public. And thus such an illustration and command would radically cut to the heart. It'd be like gasping, like, what? Turn to him the other cheek. And this practice truly opening one up to further dishonor. They've dishonored you once, turn them the other cheek so they can dishonor you again. And again, this is not eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Illustration number 2. First part of verse 40. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic. Well, guys, this verse is clearly limited to a legal context of someone taking you to court. A prospect where the other person finds legal means of depriving the follower of Jesus part of his clothing, in fact, his tunic. So again, a lawsuit is brought, and one's opponent is suing for possession of one's undergarment, which today would be a t-shirt or shirt for us. The tunic was like a sack made of wool, linen, or cotton with a hole for the head and two holes for the arms. Years ago, I did this Easter thing, and I put on this tunic and kind of acted out the Easter story. Every week, I was putting that sack over my head and through my arms, and that was basically a tunic. And so if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, perhaps as payment for or some form of collateral, which was legal. Far from fighting against such forfeiture, Jesus says, verse 40, the end there, let him have your cloak as well. Let him have your cloak as well, which today would be a coat, a coat. And this would be more than the law could require. It could require your tunic, but it could not require your cloak. Like of depriving someone of their cloak or coat. Give them your shirt, but also your coat. But another imperative from the Lord to be ready to let him have the outer garment as well, both the inner and outer garment. And definitely a larger, heavier, and more expensive garment, and one that even the poorest person had the right to keep. You don't take a person's coat. You say, especially in the dead of winter, but you don't take his coat ever. And a garment that could not be taken away from someone permanently. A garment that one's opponent could not have dared to claim. And thus, this voluntary surrender as well is quite significant here. Another gasp. The cloak as well? My coat as well? Saints, the disciple of Jesus was to offer it freely, even at the cost of leaving himself with nothing to wear or to keep warm with. You want my tunic? Fine, here's my tunic, but let me give you my coat as well. And this practice truly going above and beyond the letter of the law. Illustration number 3. First part of verse 41. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile. People in New Testament times, Roman soldiers had the authority to press civilians into service to carry loads for them. An oppressive practice that was deeply resented. Think about that. Of being commandeered to carry the luggage of military personnel. Like you. Hey, you over there, get over here. Carry my gear. For a mile. You're going to walk with me for a mile. So not only to haul military equipment for soldiers to whom you were under subjection to, and this while under Roman occupation. So I imagine when they saw soldiers moving around, people would often hide. Like, I'm not doing anything for them. But Jesus, and if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Again, it would be like Jesus telling us that we're under subjection. The soldier is pressing us into service to carry his gear. And Jesus tells us to do this for a mile, but add another mile to it. Again, we would probably say something like, are you kidding me? You've got to be kidding me. How about outrage? How about spite? How about vengeance and retaliation instead? Do what? Go with him not 1 mile, but 2? I don't even want to go 1 mile with him. So then when you, my followers, are compelled to drop what you are doing, like you got something to do, and a soldier comes by, and forced to go 1 mile for the Romans, so not for your mom or dad or your parents or your grandparents or neighbors, forced to go 1 mile, Demonstrate your willingness by tacking on another mile. This is your own idea. The Lord says, okay, that's it. You've gone a mile. No. I got a better idea. Let's go 2 miles. I love carrying this stuff for you. So after 1 mile, you just keep going. That would be unheard of. You would probably know exactly how many steps is a mile. You got to that, you'd say, I'm done. I'm done. You can't compel me to go anymore. So not only put up cheerfully with the initial unreasonable and much disliked requests, but take it a mile further beyond what is asked. I'm going to gladly go another mile for you. Basically, volunteer for double time for double duty. Now again, people, this would be unheard of. This type of attitude and action would be incomprehensible. Why would you do that? Why would you want us to do that? Why are you teaching this? Especially doing this for one's enemy. And this practice truly going the extra mile. I mean, think about it. Parents today, we want our kids to go the extra mile, don't we? Like taking out the trash, and they don't consider picking up other trash that's there right next to it. They just take out can't you go the extra mile and take out all the trash? Illustration number 4. First part of verse 42. Give to the one who begs from you. Give to the one who begs from you. Now, people, this is what would be more of an everyday situation. But also another imperative. Jesus here advocating a generosity and a desire to meet those in dire need. To the one who begs, who asks of you. Being ready and willing to give to those who need money or goods to make it another day possibly, or just to survive the day they're in. Of course, our natural bent to such a request is resistance. Again, a natural bent is resistance. Our natural bent is to come up with arguments to prove why we shouldn't have to help them. And most of us are pretty good at that. Why we shouldn't have to help such a person. But again, Jesus answers such resistance with, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. So don't turn away, don't reject or repudiate someone who would ask. But instead, check your heart, your heart attitude, and demonstrate a genuine spirit or generous spirit. With a willingness to lend money, perhaps interest-free, if and when a genuine need arises. And this practice truly going beyond what's normal. Well, friends, while these 4 illustrations have powerful shock value, they were not meant to be new legal prescriptions. Again, like, these are the new laws. We've got to live by these laws. No, but great principles to strive for and live by. For example, and regarding the last illustration, verse 42, give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. John Calvin said, Christ's purpose was to make his disciples generous, not prodigal. He said, there is stupid prodigality which pours away the Lord's gifts recklessly. So again, Calvin is saying it would be reckless. Just anybody that begs or asks you for money, you're just giving them money right and left. I mean, you would end up homeless. You would be begging then. Likewise, Augustine wrote, the text says, same verse, the text says, give to everyone that asks, not give everything to him that asks. He gives what he can in the circumstances in which he finds himself. So again, that's the principle of Jesus' teaching. Can I help this person out? How can I help this person out? How do I live this out? Well, so verse 42 does not commit Jesus' disciples to giving endless amounts of money to everyone who seeks a soft touch. Like, this guy's just handing out money. Go ask him. He's trying to live this out. He's giving everything away. And now we're going to have to help him out because he has nothing. But still, all four illustrations must not be diluted by endless equivocations or ambiguity or excuses. See, here's the greater problem in Christianity today. In fact, David Platt quoted Kierkegaard, who said something like this. I don't have the direct quote, but Christianity today, the church today, is nothing like the New Testament church. And saying this in a way that here's the commands, here's the word, and we always walk around it somehow. We always excuse why we don't have to obey it. We don't live it out. So again, these four illustrations, we can easily excuse ourselves from having to do these things. You know, especially the last one. Again, that's easy for us. We go, oh, they're just ripping people off. That guy sits out in front of Walmart. He's just ripping people off. So kids, don't ever give to these people. I actually shared this in Sunday school today, talking in James about helping orphans and widows. Wouldn't it be better to go actually talk to that person and ask them what's going on in your life? And maybe we don't always give people money, but actually maybe talk to them and ask them, what situation are you in? Why are you out here? And how can we help you? I mean, maybe it's not money, maybe it's food, maybe it's work, maybe it's some good counsel. Maybe they need to hear the gospel. But I think we always have a good way of why we don't have to do any of these things that Jesus just outlined. Even the first one, well, evil in that day, wasn't the evil today. We really live in a dark time, so definitely going to resist that person. I'm going to fight back. I'm going to oppose them. I'm going to push against them. So I think we really have to be careful. Oh, I don't really understand this passage. I mean, the way I see it, this is what it means. Or there's no way I can help anybody out. I mean, we're barely making it. Oh, I just bought a new car, but we're barely making it because now my budget's really tight. I like what Dan Schwartz, I shared this with the Sunday school, where, if he met a homeless person in Seattle, he would not give him money, but he would take him out to lunch. He says, I won't give you money, but I'll take you to lunch. I want to hear your story. And then maybe find out, maybe they really need like $10 just to make it through the day or something. But we are so good at just taking these things and going, okay, this is just too radical. How can I soften this to fit with what I believe Jesus is talking about? So again, go back to Kierkegaard about, New Testament church Christianity today our Christianity doesn't look anything like that. We've excused so much away. We don't obey the Word of God. We make it fit our lifestyle. In fact, I think Platt was talking about the South part of our country, how everyone fits in church to their day. They go to church, but only because it fits in on Sunday. They're not working on Sunday, and they can give that hour, but then they're out at the country club or out at the golf course the rest of the day. And so, yeah, we say we're Christians and we believe in doing what Christians should do as long as it fits into our schedule and our budget and then I'm on board with it. But if there's any radical teaching, somehow I got to figure out how not to do that or, tell myself why I can't do it. And again, I'm not just preaching to the choir, I'm preaching to myself here. And therefore, not forgetting that Jesus' real aim here in the Sermon on the Mount being to establish a greater righteousness. So instead of figuring out how to minimize such teaching, to make yourself feel good and be able to sleep at night, or somehow get around it, like, that guy's out there, I'm going to drive out the other side of Walmart. I don't have to look at him. I don't have to, or I'll just pretend like I'm singing songs on the radio and I don't see you. And I'll just drive right by you. And I'm not saying people aren't out there ripping people off. I'm saying we have ways of getting around things. So instead of doing that, we ought to ask, in what practical ways can these principles be worked out in my life in the kingdom? This is a teaching. These are the principles. How can I live this out in a practical, meaningful, and obedient way? For me personally, for my family, how can I teach my family these principles? If someone begs, how do you help them? If someone slaps you on the right cheek, what does it mean to turn to them the other cheek? So my family, and also for my church. Are we a church body, a bunch of people in the church that we're excuse makers? We're always figuring out how to get around things, that we truly aren't about living this out. That's a phony kind of Christianity. That's a hypocritical Christianity. I mean, none of us like politicians that say one thing and do the other thing. I mean, the governor's getting recalled. Don't go out and eat. Next day, he's eating with a bunch of people, no mask. Don't do this. Close all the wineries, but my winery is going to stay open. So personally for me, how does that work out? For my family, for my church? For the sake of others, my community, and the world. How can I work in these different environments? Of course, all of these illustrations challenge us to unnatural behavior. Again, this is not natural. Especially as we see the opposite of such expression being naturally worked out in our world today. Where do you ever see this worked out in our world today? Come on, give it to me here and I'll give you the other one. No, it's always like, okay, come on. Such unnatural behavior as non-resistance instead of retaliation. That thing is really going at it. I'll give him one. Oh wait, I shouldn't do that, right? I shouldn't resist. See, I know most of you guys want to get out there, get your guns out of your car and take a couple of shots. Revenge. So think about this, non-resistance instead of retaliation, generosity instead of the defense of one's rights, cheerfulness instead of doing things begrudgingly, concern for others instead of constant self-concern. I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this because I need this. I have to have this. It's mine. Over working for the good of those with whom we would otherwise be at odds with. Even allowing ourselves to be insulted and opposed upon. Again, we don't like to hear this. Without resisting on giving or giving them their just deserts. Like, for instance, being bent on seeking revenge or retaliation or vengeance. Now, such tendencies should not be part of our arsenal or our practice in the kingdom, especially where great principles for living are to be found and where greater righteousness is to be established. A place where unnatural behavior is taught, is sought, and wrought. And this, by the way, only possible for those with a new heart and a new spirit within them. Like, for instance, those who walk according to the Spirit and who are careful to obey Jesus' teaching. A kingdom where unselfish acts are demonstrated, benevolence is uncalculated, and retaliation is repudiated.